Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Annual Conference Live at 0 to 3. I'm Will Hallex. Before we get started, I do want to remind you that we have a giveaway for a free registration for next year's annual conference in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. You can learn more about how to enter at 0to3.org/AC Live. We're going to be doing the drawing for that later today, so you have just a little bit more time. For now, this is our fireside chat on positive parenting. I'm really excited to be joined here by Ellen Galinsky. She's the president of Families and Work Institute, senior research advisor, Society of Human Resource Management, the chief science officer at the Bezos Family Foundation, and by Rebecca Parlakian, senior director of programs at 0 to 3. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So it'd be good to start out with an overview. What is positive parenting, and how is it linked to life skills?
Wow, well, I think positive parenting is, well, the way 0 to 3 is defined it's 9 key elements of the relationship between parent and child. And those elements are all pieces that contribute to a strong and nurturing relationship. And that supports children's learning and development, not just when they're little, but across the lifespan. And do you want to talk about the connection to life skills?
Yes. I have been looking, I am a researcher, and I have been looking at the research on what helps kids and adults thrive intensively for about the last 18, 19 years, and have found that there are certain skills that are based on executive functions of the brain. I call them life skills because they're good for us now. They're, in my age, they're good for kids, and they are things like focus and self-control, being able perspective taking, or being able to understand what you think and feel and what others think and feel and how those might be different or the same. Communicating, which is understanding what you want to say, but also how it will be heard. So it involves not just blurting out anything, it involves being able to have self-control, and it also involves understanding how the person you're talking to or people you're talking to will hear what you say. Making connections is the whole notion of symbolic relationships, categories, how things go together. What stands for what, which is the basis of all knowledge, and then understanding how things go together in unusual ways, which for me is the core of creativity. Critical thinking, which I think in today's world is very critical. What's real, what's valid, what's the truth versus what is false or not true. Figuring that out is important to us as parents, is important to us in what we say to our children, and important to how we live our life because we act on our beliefs. Taking on challenges is more than just coping with the things that happen to you that can be difficult. Taking on challenges is the trying that hard thing. It's, getting back on that bike when you fall off, trying that subject that you were scared of in school or something. And then finally being a self-directed, engaged learner. My work on the workforce and workplace over these years have shown that the people who are ongoing learners, who are really engaged in learning, are the people who do the best in their in the work world. And so I think Rebecca has found wonderful ways to link these parenting competencies with these life skills. I just was thrilled when Rebecca sent me how our work aligns.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And it really sounds like it's a comprehensive sort of set of benefits that comes out of these approaches. Yeah. In terms of the term positive parenting, as a parent, it makes you think, that you always need to be cheerful. So if, if that, doesn't happen, if you, as a, if you sort of break character in that way, does that mean that you failed, or is this something that you can keep working at?
As the parent of 2 teenagers now, I'm not positive all the time, for sure. But I think the really important thing about positive parenting is not that you have to have, be cheery and smiling all the time, but it's really about looking for ways to create connections with your child, and that when disconnections happen, which they always do and normally do, that you find ways to repair the relationship. And so children know that you're their rock, and that they can turn to you, and that they always know that you delight in them. And I think that's really the key to positive parenting.
That's great.
I'd like to say something about working parents, because they particularly feel, employed parents, that they have an onus to be, they're away from their kids, so they feel like they have to be wonderful and guilty if they're not. And I did a study where I asked the children if they had one change that could help improve the way their mothers and separately their father's work affects their life, what would that change be? And what do you think? I asked parents to guess what their kids would say. What do you think the parents guessed that their kids would say?
I guess more time.
Yeah, that's exactly what most parents, 56% of parents, thought that's what their children would say. Only gave them one wish. But what they said was they wished their parents would be less stressed and less tired. Now, that was a guilt trip. This is the perfect parent, this is stranglehold that we all live with. They understood that their parents could have a bad day. They just didn't know, was it their fault? And so it's something as simple as coming home and saying, traffic was awful. I need to calm down for a few minutes, because they look to us for role models about how we handle our bad times. So being good enough, I think, is what we eventually, as we grow and change as parents, aspire to. We start off wanting to be perfect, but then we move to being good enough.
And I think from the perspective of learning, kids are learning as much or more from the imperfect moments as they are from the perfect. So,
in my case, I found that only 2 in 5 kids thought that their parents liked their work a lot, and 3 in 5 parents liked their work a lot. So because we were so worried about being perfect and not sharing, well, look, I had a bad day, but here's how I solved it, how we could be a role model, and here, I was mad at so-and-so, but I did this and that's, so that can be useful to them. That's, to me, what positive parenting competencies are all about.
Absolutely, and I think that leads really nicely into my next question, which is something that is of, I think, equal concern to parents and professional caregivers, which, speaking of things not going well, discipline, right? This is something that people have a lot of questions about. And so can positive parenting principles be applied to discipline also?
yeah, I mean, one of the key elements of positive parenting is to set age-appropriate guidelines and limits for children, because children actually thrive on age-appropriate guidelines because it gives them a sense of safety and security. I think the other important element of positive parenting here is that parents have to recognize and manage their own emotional reactions to their children, so that in the moment they're responding with intention rather than just reacting. Because when we respond with intention, that challenging behavior can become a learning opportunity. And when we're reacting, it's often, the more explosive response. So I think that's kind of where positive parenting overlaps with discipline.
I have pretty strong views about dealing with challenging moments, which is that we tend to fix problems for kids rather than give them the skills to learn to solve their own problems. So today in my talk, I gave people the example of how would you handle a 4-year-old who's very wiggly and won't sit still. And I asked people to think for a moment about what they would do. And I've asked people in other times to write down what they would do, and I take them back and read them. And most people, the large majority, solve it for the child. They set a limit for the child rather than to say, if you're feeling like you can't sit still and we need to, what ideas, not obviously for an infant, not even for a toddler, but by the time we get to the 3-year-olds, we can begin to do that. What ideas do you have that would help you manage? By doing that, we're helping the child learn how to manage in new situations, and not just having to rely on us to fix their problems for them.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that occurs to me too as we're talking is this idea of how parents see things and how children see things, right? How parents see things and how children see things. Like, as you're talking from the survey results, one important project that 0 to 3 is undertaking is about to release the results of next week is the 2018 parent survey. So I was hoping we could hear a little bit about that too.
Yes, so we're releasing our parenting survey next week called Millennial Connections, and you'll be able to learn all about it at 0to3.org/parenting survey. And we talked to parents nationwide about who do they go to with questions? Who do they trust, to get parenting information? What are their questions? And what do they do with that information? And although those results will be available next week, we're super excited to share it with the field, and we hope you'll check it out.
I can't wait.
So a lot of the folks who are watching in our digital audience now are professionals, either professional caregivers or service providers. What advice would you have for them in terms of incorporating the positive parenting principles into their own work?
Well, I think, the positive parent, the key elements for positive parenting obviously describe a nurturing parent-child relationship, but they also describe a nurturing adult-child relationship in general. So I think those 9 components are really applicable beyond parents to the professionals that are working with young children and families. So really to look at those and think about how can I embody those in my work with young children is an important way that we can bring them to life.
And for life skills, I will, in looking at the research, there are so many studies that pull out the factors that matter. For example, let's say we want our children to have joy and wonder. We talked about that at a keynote this morning. And how do you nurture that joy and wonder? Well, if a child asks you a question and you just give the answer, they move on. They're not curious. If you say, I wonder, let's go find out, it's so simple. And that's come from studies of people at MIT and at the University of California at Berkeley, that just the way we talk to children can help promote those qualities that we want, the life skills that we want in children.
That's great. And also, if you're a professional watching at home, you can look at some of the related resources on this. We've curated at 0to3.org/AC Live. You can also see our fireside chat schedule. We're actually going to have another one at 4:30 p.m. Mountain Time with our executive director, so get ready for that. That's coming up very soon. In the meantime, thank you both so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Wonderful to be here with you.
Yeah, all right, and we'll see you soon.